It may puzzle geopolitical experts and energy analysts for the whole of 2026. From the U.S. surprise attack against Venezuela to the arrest of President Nicolas Maduro, headlines constantly flashed over 2 hours.
It is a military intervention in a sovereign state, including political intervention. There is no doubt that this violates international law. It will further exacerbate the trust deficit of the United States and then make the international community lack a normal, logical judgment on the behavior of a major country.
This oil gambit unfolds into a pattern emerging across Latin America, known as the Donroe Doctrine, which U.S. media combines Donald Trump with the Monroe Doctrine. The doctrine, which historically declared the Western Hemisphere a U.S. sphere of influence, is being revived with a Trumpian twist. It is characterized by blunt threats of force, such as the repeated suggestion to reclaim the Panama Canal and a preference for unilateral sanctions over diplomacy.
Across Latin America, the United States has a long history of intervening in the region and backing coups. It's important to emphasize that Marco Rubio is both simultaneously the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor, and he has dedicated his political career to trying to destabilize these independent left-wing governments in Latin America.
Now Venezuela serves as the primary theater for enforcing this doctrine. The playbook is familiar. Recognize an opposition figure, impose maximum economic and military pressure. During his first term as U.S. president, Trump recognized Venezuela's opposition leader Juan Guaido, who declared himself interim president in January 2019. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro accused the U.S. of orchestrating a coup and announced the diplomatic break. Since then, the U.S. has continuously intensified sanctions to cripple the Maduro government, a campaign of economic warfare centered on oil, including a ban on the import of Venezuelan crude oil and the freezing of assets of its oil companies in the U.S.
In fact, the Maduro government still takes advantage of all feasible conditions to further develop this kind of oil trade relationship with many countries. Trump is actually very worried. If a leeway is left in this regard and he's allowed to conduct trade with other countries, it will provide a very important support for the stability of the Maduro government in Venezuela.
Major powers like Brazil, Mexico, and Cuba strongly condemn the actions, with leaders criticizing the attack as a violation of international law and undermining the region's status as zone of peace. Instead of a modern Monroe Doctrine through U.S. coercion, they champion a doctrine of sovereignty and non-intervention.
I have lived for many years in Latin America. I've talked to many people in Latin America, and pretty much everyone agrees that this is a form of imperialism, and they are not going to tolerate the U.S. treating this region, which is independent, as its so-called backyard.
Throughout the 200-year history of the Monroe Doctrine, they have been striving to break away from the United States' dependence and reliance on it and achieve greater autonomy. So I think Trump's extreme military operation this time, in my personal opinion, is a very clear signal of the decline of the United States' hegemony in the Western Hemisphere.
The paradox now is Washington's attempt to assert dominance over Venezuela may ultimately result in a more resilient Caracas and a Latin America more skeptical of U.S. leadership than at any time. The true cost of this oil-filled gambit may not be measured in Caracas, but in the fading credibility of Trump's peace appeal and American influence in its own hemisphere.